Hey, welcome back to the channel. Did you know that vision exercises can help you get stronger, help you improve your mobility, and even help you decrease pain? And yes, I actually mean exercises with your eyeballs. What we're going to do today is go through a very simple vision exercise with the intention of helping you improve your mobility and to help you decrease pain. Vision exercises are really interesting, and they are starting to slowly make their way into the world of movement now. But what I notice is that a lot of people don't know how to apply them yet. They also don't know that vision exercises can be applied to many different things for many different reasons. And we tend to make the assumption that vision exercises are only good for clinical level visual dysfunction, and that couldn't be further from the truth. Your visual system is pretty much your most important sensory system for moving through the world, and because your brain prioritizes so much of the information that we get from the outside world that comes in through our eyes, your visual system has an enormous impact on the quality of your movement and how much pain you feel. So watch this whole video. We're going to go through the exercise together, and we're going to do some assessing and some reassessing to see how the exercise impacts your body. And then after that, I'm going to summarize how you can use the exercise in your life, and I'll also describe a little bit about the basic neuroanatomy that supports why it can work in the first place. Are you ready? Here we go. Before we get into the vision exercise, it is most important that you have a baseline assessment that you can come back to see how the exercise has impacted your body. Now, what I'm going to tell you about today's assessment is that you want to choose a movement that is mostly flexor dominant. Okay, so that means that the flexor muscles are very much involved in the movement. So let me give you some examples. If you straighten out your arm and you raise it up overhead, and you just take a qualitative assessment of how easy or difficult this feels, and of course how far you're going, this is shoulder flexion. Okay, so this would actually be a good assessment to use for today. Another example would be a forward flexion, where you're just bending over as if you're going to touch your toes. Okay, it's not a forced movement. Again, you're just seeing how easy or difficult is it, right? It's a qualitative assessment, and how far have you gone. And then last, if you wanted to use a movement such as a squat, like a more functional type exercise or movement, you could simply do some squats and again take a qualitative assessment. How does it feel in the position, and how far or how deep are you going in the case of a squat? So really any movement is perfectly fine to use. If you're not quite sure what to use, then just choose one of the three examples that I've just given you. Now, the next part of your assessment can be about pain and discomfort. Remember how I told you vision exercises can actually be really powerful for helping you decrease pain. Now, what I'm going to say is you can use discomfort as part of your assessment as long as the movement that you're going to test isn't going to exacerbate your symptoms, right? You want to make sure that you're safe to do that. So for example, if you have an extremely sensitive lower back issue right now, I would not recommend doing a forward folding motion if you feel that you're so sensitive that just the assessment could exacerbate the symptoms. But if it's just some long-standing discomfort and you know you can do that and kind of check in with it just to see how you're feeling, then go for it, as long as you feel safe about that. And you could do the same for any movement that you choose. So we can use pain and discomfort as part of this assessment. We can use a movement that's flexor dominant as part of this assessment. And if you happen to have pain, with a flexor dominant motion, well then you can use that. So get your baseline assessment. Be really, really aware of how you're feeling and moving when you create that movement. That's your assessment, and then after we perform the exercise, you're going to be going back to your assessment to see what kind of change has taken place after performing the vision exercise. All right, time for some pencil push-ups. What you're going to need is to buy this really expensive piece of equipment. I have one right here. Just got to find it. Where is it? Oh, there it is. It's called your index finger. Or you could use a pen or a pencil. So I actually prefer to use a pen or a pencil because I like to use the tip of the pen as the visual target. But if you don't have one handy, you can literally use your index finger and you can just look at the tip of your finger or the nail on your finger. Because we need a visual target, right? Our eyes are going to be fixated on the target and we're going to be moving a specific way to get our eyes to do something very specific. So this exercise is about training the skill of what is called convergence, which is the ability for your eyes to track something coming in closer to you. So your eyes have muscles that pull your eyeballs in. And then as we follow something out away from us, we have muscles that pull our eyeballs out. So we have convergence, which is tracking something coming in. We have divergence, which is tracking something going out. So we're going to be working on those muscles. So here's what you can do to start. You can be in a standing position or you can be seated. If you're standing, neutral stance, lengthen up through the crown of your head. Take your visual target, place it out in front of you at an arm's length away, and you want it to be lined up with about the bridge of your nose. You're going to look at the tip of, in this case, my pen, and you're slowly going to follow it in towards the tip of your nose, and then back out again. Now the goal is to follow your target, and I want you to follow it in as far as you can without your target splitting into two. So that's going to help you gauge your range of motion. What will happen for some people is as they get closer, oh, mine started to split a little bit. That's a little unusual for me too, so I'm probably going to need a few reps here to kind of get my eyes to work the way I want them to. Normally I can touch the tip of my nose. But what you'll find is some people will bring it into about right here, and all of a sudden the target will go boing and it'll split into two. We don't want that. If that's happening to you, that's your cue to back off on range of motion a little bit, because you're asking your eyes to work too hard, and functionally they're not doing what we want them to do. We want to see one target the whole way in, and ideally, either right away or after a few practice reps, you're able to bring your target all the way to the tip of your nose. That would be like what we consider the athletic standard. You'll notice that your target might get a little fuzzy in those last 2 inches of range of motion as you approach your nose. That's pretty normal, don't worry about that. But again, we just don't want the target splitting into two. So let's do this again. Lengthen up nice and tall. Look at your target. As you follow it into the tip of your nose, your eyes are going to work really hard as you get closer to your nose, and then you're slowly following it back out. So following it in, this is the skill of convergence. There we go, I'm getting a little better as I go here. And following it out is the skill of divergence. Make sure that you're staying relaxed. You can breathe. You don't want to be building unnecessary tension in your body as you do this. Okay, so that's pencil push-ups. I told you it was simple. Now, what you're going to want to do with this at first is only a few repetitions. Okay, 3 to 5 is probably a good range to start with. You wouldn't want to go and do 15 or 20 of these right away. Oddly enough, this is extremely challenging for some people. And you might even feel that if you do too many repetitions, you could start to build up some visual fatigue or kind of a straining feeling around your eyes. And if you feel anything like that, just stop, okay? You've kind of met your threshold. There's no reason to go any further, okay? So that'll help you kind of choose the number of repetitions that are good for you right now. And then over time, like any kind of exercise, you'd be able to build up the number of repetitions that you can complete. But again, 3 to 5 at first is plenty, totally sufficient. Now, after you've done your first set of pencil push-ups, assuming you did them well and your eyes were doing what we want them to do, now your job is to go back and reassess using the same exact assessment that you started with, whatever your baseline was. So perhaps that was shoulder flexion, okay? You'd go back and just kind of see qualitatively, how does it feel? Maybe it was a forward bend, okay? Maybe it was squatting. And check in with that and see, did you get better? Did you stay the same? Or did you get worse? All right, so what happened with your reassessment? I'd love to know what happened with your reassessments. Let me know in the comments. Here's what I want you to know about the reassessment. So you either got better, you either stayed the same, or you could potentially even get worse. A lot of people are going to get better from this, meaning they're going to experience an increase in their mobility, so they'll be able to move further, and it will feel less efficient, and you could even experience a decrease in the pain that you were feeling. And if that happened for you, you probably think I just played some, did some crazy magic trick on you. And I promise you I didn't. This is applied neuroscience. There's an actual anatomic rationale for why this could help you. So we'll come back to that in a minute, and I'll explain some of that neuroanatomy. But let me just stay on this for a little bit longer, because I want to explain why somebody might actually get worse, because it is absolutely possible that somebody could get worse from doing a vision training drill, meaning their mobility could decrease, and in some cases their pain could actually increase. So here's what you need to know. There's a lot that goes into this, but I'm going to try to be pretty simple and quick with the explanation. Training your visual system, if you're an individual that already has kind of heightened sympathetics, your fight or flight nervous system for whatever reason is elevated, this particular exercise will actually activate a portion of the brain that is directly impacts your sympathetics. So if you already have high sympathetics and now you go and activate it with a vision drill, it is possible that you could get worse because it could increase threat levels. The other thing that could potentially be at play is that you could actually be a person that has muscle imbalances with their eye muscles. Okay, that's more common than you would think. And by doing pencil push-ups, you're working the nervous system and your eye muscles really, really hard. You could be elevating threat levels as you do that, in which case, once you kind of pass your dosage for the exercise, you might then experience that your mobility is decreasing and your pain is increasing. Okay, so just understand that some people are sensitive to vision exercises, and it doesn't mean that you don't need them. That's what you have to understand. It just means that you might have to do some other things first, or you really have to work hard in figuring out what your ideal dosage is of the exercise. Because if you do have vision issues, you can retrain yourself out of that, just like you can train yourself out of any movement problem. You just have to use the right exercises in a targeted fashion, and of course you have to have the right dosage to respect your brain and your nervous system and what it can tolerate in that process. So you could get better, you could get worse. Hopefully, if you made it this far in the video, it's because you got better. Now, let's talk neuroanatomy for a minute, because this was not a magic trick. It just so happens that when you do convergence and divergence, you are actually impacting your brainstem very directly, because the nerves that supply your eye muscles insert into the brainstem. Okay? In this case, this is a very strong cranial nerve 3 and cranial nerve 4 activation, and we're also getting some cranial nerve 6 activation from divergence. So depending on the direction your eyes are moving, that kind of dictates the dominance of which muscles and what nerves are being used throughout that range of motion. So if we look at the neuroanatomy and we trace that nerve back to where it inserts into, that's the brainstem. And your brainstem is one of the primary brain areas that controls muscle tone. Okay, so doing pencil push-ups, as I said, can really impact exercises or movements that are flexor dominant. They don't have to just be flexor dominant. Okay, there's it goes deeper than that, but what I constantly observe is that it really helps with flexor type activities, so that's why we chose an assessment that involves flexor tone. So the brainstem is highly involved in calibrating muscle tone, if you want to think about it that way. So that means Based on this neuroanatomy, knowing that, we can strategically use the exercise to help us with, in this case, a flexor dominant movement. So for example, if you're the individual that has pain at the top of this movement, which is shoulder flexion, you could potentially use pencil push-ups, as long as it assessed well for you, to help improve this movement, hopefully decrease pain and improve the efficiency of the movement. And then what you've done is you've created this window, okay? We'll call it like a temporary window of better function, because you upregulated the right systems and the right brain areas to help you with better movement. Once you've done that, you can do one of two things. You can just use the exercise by itself to decrease threat, because maybe this shoulder issue, okay, is super sensitive and you're not ready to load it yet. Okay, and that's perfectly fine. That means you would do maybe 3 to 5 repetitions of pencil push-ups throughout your day, kind of spread out, maybe every few hours, to get that high payoff result and to decrease threat, because it's directly impacting that concern that you have. Or, so the second thing you could do here is, if your issue is not super sensitive, or you're just looking to improve your shoulder mobility, and you notice that doing pencil push-ups increases your range of motion, you've created that temporary window now where we can train it, right? We can start to load that range of motion. So let's say I didn't have great mobility before. I do 5 reps of pencil push-ups and now I've restored mobility. It's now time for me to load this shoulder. So now I'm doing some of the other various joint mobility drills that I teach. Maybe we're incorporating resistance bands so that we can actually strength train the shoulder itself in, this is the important part, in the new available range of motion that is no longer threatening. That's how you're going to get your brain to accept that it can perform movements that are pain-free now in that range of motion, and this is how you own it over time. So often what we're doing is using vision drills to decrease overall threat, improve movement, and decrease pain. Then we're utilizing that period of time to now load the shoulder so that we can train it. And over time, just like with any training process, your brain and your body begins to adapt, and we see that you then begin to own that result. Okay, so that was a lot of rambling to say those two options. 1, use the exercise for threat reduction if it's helping you feel better and move better. Do that throughout the day. And 2, if your issue is not super sensitive, that's your opportunity now, after you've opened up that new range of motion, to load it and train your brain to own it. All right, there it is, a little introduction to using vision training for improving mobility issues and decreasing pain. Now remember, you can use any of the 3 assessments that I demonstrated in the video, but you can also use anything else that you want to come up with, any movement that is important to you. And then make sure that you assess and reassess to see what your body's response is to the drill. And definitely let me know what happened in the comments. And if you have any questions about this process, please ask. I'd be happy to help you out. So that's it for today. If you like this video, please give it the thumbs up, subscribe to the channel. Every action that you take helps us reach more people like you. And if you really like these concepts of using applied neurology with training and rehab, then definitely check out our membership platform and our specialty course, the Neuro Dojo. In both of these areas, we go deep into applied neurology, how to use it with training and rehab to help solve movement and pain issues. So that's it for today. Thank you so much for watching. I'll see you in the next video.